Hello friends, welcome to the WAP Digital Studio. Alongside me, our lead investigative reporter, Scotty Hunter. Scotty, we're taking folks behind the scenes of our investigative reports this week. We're talking about missing Chromebooks from schools.
Right, and this was one that we did last night, so it's kind of interesting to do this one so quickly. But I feel like it's a talker, right? I mean, this was something that, those Chromebooks, they were free. They went out to so many students across, not just here, but across the country, really, to make sure that they could do that virtual learning, make sure that students could be connected. But of course, the investigative brain in me was like, okay, somebody's got to pay for that. Obviously, this came from Federal CARES Act money, and that is essentially your tax dollars that went to these. So these Chromebooks weren't free. And now some of them are missing. And I was looking at some of the comments on social media after we posted this story, and some people were like, surprise, surprise. Of course they were going to go missing.
Yeah, so again, kind of setting the scene for folks. Things went virtual. Students had to learn from home. Access to that technology and learning online isn't available to everyone. So the schools stepped in to try to make it easier, providing Chromebooks. And these were districts around the area, not any specific district, but districts around our area, providing Chromebooks for their students. Paid for, as you mentioned, by the Federal CARES Act, a lot of that money paying for a lot of these Chromebooks. But now that school's done, the Chromebooks are supposed to go back to the school. But you looked into several different districts around our area, and every one of them reported not just like one or two missing, but like hundreds missing.
Yeah. Now, some of them were, some smaller numbers, but some were hundreds. At least two instances were, more than 100. Here in East Baton Rouge, it was more than 300. And I'll actually walk over here and show some of those numbers because we have a list of them right here. In East Baton Rouge, that they gave out 35,000 of these Chromebooks, and 328 of them are reported lost or reported stolen. In Ascension Parish, they gave out 24,000 devices. Now here they were kind of low. They were reporting 10 devices that were lost, and 4 of them had been recovered since they started looking into this. In Central, 46 of those Chromebooks unaccounted for, and in Livingston Parish, they gave out 4,000 devices. 188 of them have not yet been returned. So it's kind of interesting. I know one of the things too in the comments, people were saying, you better check those pawn shops because that is where those devices are going to be. Of course, these are people that are on social media. I did talk to several members of those school systems, and they were saying, there are different situations. I mean, this is case by case. Some of them are lost. Some
Which
of
you
them
can understand. You're dealing with probably folks working at home, teaching from home. Chaos happens. I have a hard time keeping up with my own devices that I pay for and I'm very invested in. So, I mean, I could see where, if you had something at home, I could see a parent very easily losing track of that. But
right, it's kind of case by case because, some of them were lost. But then you have some of them that were stolen, and that gets a little more tricky. I know here in East Baton Rouge, I spoke with the sheriff's office, and they said that they did get some police reports from, some of these devices that had been stolen. You also have some instances in Livingston Parish where they tell me over there, they know who has them, they know, who they gave those Chromebooks out to, but it's a matter of, time got away from them and they just haven't given them back. They tell me it might be a little bit easier to try and get it, not over the summer, but maybe try and wait until school starts back again, because we're almost at school again, and so they think that when parents gear up for school, they'll be in that mindset and they'll have an easier time getting them back.
Well, and another reason I found this interesting was because these Chromebooks that are missing, essentially they would be going to other students. So then you have this situation where potentially you have another student who might not have a Chromebook because one's missing. So that's kind of why this is something that needed attention, and something, a reason to bring attention to this is so that every student has what they need in order to be successful. Now, you also talked to some parents, talked to one lady who was very careful about keeping up with hers, and she had some thoughts about this.
Yeah, it was interesting. So one, she was kind of surprised that this was able to happen because she said, in my house, we were like, okay, this is the school's property. It's not ours. So we're going to take very good care of it. She had an older student, and then she also had a 7-year-old. So that's kind of interesting. She said it was so nerve-wracking for her to know that, a 7-year-old is going to have to take care of this. They're going to have to manage it, not just get on the system and, do their schoolwork, but also make sure they don't break it, make sure they don't drop it, make sure they don't, lose it or whatever. And so one of the things that she said that they did is they tried to set up his workspace and just make sure that, okay, this can only be used for your schoolwork. Once that schoolwork is done, it goes in this backpack. The backpack gets put away. So she was very strict about how they kept up with that. And so she was just like, that responsibility shouldn't just fall on those kids. I mean, it should fall on parents. She says, it's up to parents to kind of make that decision and ultimately be responsible for that, not the kids.
Right. Well, let's take a listen to this interview.
We had a specific backpack in an area that we kept it or whatever. He wasn't able to use it for anything else. He had his own tablet for home, so he wasn't using it for anything but for school. As parents, I think we have to have the responsibility to keep up with this equipment because it's not ours. You're borrowing it. It's like having a car. You may be leasing it or you may be paying a note on it. And so technically it's yours, technically it's not, but you're going to take care of it. So I think as parents, we should do a better job of just taking care of that equipment on behalf of our children.
I need her to come and help me be a little more responsible with my own personal items. I like her attitude. I like what she has to say.
Fix my life.
I like that perspective. But it does raise a very good point because this is school property. And at the end of the day, this is something to help kids and make sure that they're successful. So it is a shame to see that some of these have gone missing. But so where does this go from here?
Yeah, obviously the next question in doing this is what are the schools doing to try and recover these, find these missing items, get parents to turn them back in. And the interesting thing about that, we got a couple of statements from some of the school systems, and really they say they treat this almost like textbooks. It's hard for me to kind of relate to that because it's been a little minute since I've been in school.
Yeah, I had the textbooks that I had to tote back and forth, not a Chromebook.
Yeah, but I remember that with those textbooks, I used to be afraid to lose those too because they would do things like hold your report card or get a fine and things like that. And so outside of that, though, it's kind of hard. The school systems are kind of in a tough situation because it's like, what do you do? How can you really make someone turn it back in? If you ask and they don't do it, I mean, where do you go from there? So I think that's one of the things that schools are kind of struggling with and maybe trying to navigate now and figure out, how they do this going forward. One of the things that I talked to that mother about, she was saying, she felt like EBR had a good system in place where they had the barcodes on the Chromebooks and they could track them. And she said that her child's teacher would check in with them regularly and say, make sure that they were using that device to do their work. So she felt like they had a pretty good system. But she's like, say, God forbid, the pandemic turns around and gets worse again, or, maybe they want to implement this in the future. They've got to get a better system, across the board of how they're going to track these, keep up with them, and, make sure that it can stay free and the parents don't have to have a fee associated with this.
Right. We certainly want to see that. All right, so Scotty Hunter, our lead investigator, talking about his latest investigation. Hundreds of Chromebooks that are lost or missing or stolen from the schools during the pandemic. We have this right now for you in the 9 News app, also under the investigative section of WAFB.com.
Yeah, and you can read that statement from EBR Schools in there and just see that full breakdown of kind of what those items are, how many are missing, how many were given out from all of the school systems, again, that we looked at in this area.
All right, Scotty, thank you. And thank you for joining us for this behind the scenes look of our 9 News investigators.